Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Mark and I thank you so much for coming by today. Well, it's that time of year when business slows down, and like I revealed in a previous video, I lost one of my bigger clients due to their layoffs and a restructure they had. So I'm looking for new business, but at the same time, it is the slow season. So while I'm getting myself ready and preparing presentations and sending out resumes and trying to drum up some new business, I'm also taking this time to go through my inventory of illustration work and design work and purging and getting rid of things. So this is my 2019 artwork flashback where I'm actually going to go through, and I figured it would be okay for you if you'd like to see what I have been doing for the past year, where I'm going to actually go through a bunch of different sketchbooks and see what's what, and a lot of the stuff from my portfolio, and see what I can get rid of. There's a lot of just useless doodles and information that I don't need to keep anymore. Most of the stuff you're seeing here is from my sketchbooks, so I'll keep this stuff because these are just fun to go through, and I haven't looked at these in about a year, so it's a lot of fun to kind of go through and just see what I was doing a year ago. There's nothing serious in here for me. This is all just fun practice doodling, just being that creative person. And some of it came, like this drawing here, came from when I was in a restaurant and I really liked the artwork around the restaurant, so I just imitated it. And a lot of it is just straight out of my head, which it's fun to do, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and there's no real context to it. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to go through my portfolio, pull out a bunch of illustrations, and see what I need to keep and see what I don't need to keep. I have tons of pre-sketches, color swatches, and tests, things that I'll never ever need again, so I can get rid of those and recycle them and just not have to worry about them again. Then I'll take my finished artwork, some of the stuff that I want to keep, and I can scan that, clean it up in Photoshop, and get that ready for a digital archive. That way I have it preserved for whenever I need it. And a lot of the stuff I may not need for a long time, but it's good to have anyway, especially in a digital format. So I'll talk about some of the stuff you see as we go through, and for the most part, it's just about just purging and getting rid of stuff and making room for new stuff. So by the time the fall comes around, I'll have everything organized, I'll have things labeled, and I'll be able to just start fresh, and hopefully with some new clients, I'll be able to just create a new archive of information, and then next year do the same thing, get rid of the stuff I don't need, and make room for the new stuff for the following year. So what I'm looking at now is this is one of my handbook journals, and anytime I see somebody that looks interesting, like this woman was in a pool, and I just thought it was funny because she was wearing pool mittens, which I didn't even know were a thing. But a lot of these drawings, like here's my beloved Boston Bruins, who did not win the Stanley Cup this year, but stuff like that, those are keepsakes for me. I did that while I was sitting in a car waiting for my daughter, listening to the game, and there's just information and drawings in here that I want to keep and that I want to just hold on to. Like, some of this stuff doesn't make any sense to anybody, and a lot of times I'll draw a picture and then I'll come back later and put a caption to it that is basically, it makes me laugh. It doesn't really make sense to anyone else. If I'm in a coffee shop or at a library or something and I'm drawing or painting, people will ask me, "Hey, can I look at your sketchbook?" And I'll say, yeah, sure, even though it's kind of private. I don't mind sharing my artwork. And people usually love it. And they say, "Oh, this is so great. I can't believe how good you are." And it's like, thank you. That's really nice of you to say. But they don't really understand what this stuff is. These sketchbook journals, this is a handbook journal. I love these things. But what they don't understand is that this stuff doesn't really mean anything. This is just me getting out the creative stuff. It's practice. It's just for fun. It's funny, it's humorous to me, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to anybody else. And so, the idea of these kind of journals is exactly that. It's a journal. It's a place to keep my thoughts, to keep my sketch ideas, to just work things out and to have fun with. And that's why it's private, and I usually don't just offer to share it to people. But like I said, if somebody wants to see it, I'm like, yeah, sure. There's nothing, bad in here. There's nothing that's going to hurt anybody. But like when I go to see a musical, like I went to see Godspell, and the character of the Pharaoh, it's like a kind of creepy character. I really liked that character, so I decided to explore it and try to draw it out for myself, and this is what I came up with. It wasn't based on anything. This was based on my own interpretation. But you can see here, there's a good example of where I just put my thoughts down, and this is why these books are so great for me. Now, this is a larger handbook journal, so there's a ton of pages still in this that I haven't finished. I don't really like using the bigger ones too much. I like the smaller ones. They're more portable. A lot of these drawings just don't make any sense. I was working on this portrait here, just playing with some different styles, seeing, okay, which one do I like better? What's going to work better? And I don't know what's up with the guy in the wheelchair there. That's just kind of crazy. This was a study for a drawing I did for a YouTube video, and you can see this, you'll see it later on, that it worked out into something similar but very different. These were also drawings for my aorta theater video work that I do. There's a new one I think coming out maybe tonight, so keep your eyes open for that. Now, this is a different sketchbook. This is an accordion journal that or an accordion sketchbook, I should say, that I made out of Fabriano paper. It's really dense paper, but it's like a fabric, so ink and watercolor just soak right into this paper. It's not the best thing to use for markers or watercolor or anything like that. It's great for colored pencils and, those kind of mediums, but you can see here how the water just saturates into these pages, and it looks really cool. This was a really fun sketchbook to work with. I don't like it that much because you use a lot of paint, and so I'd rather be a little more conservative. But with pencil, it's a lot of fun to work with because you can just blend all over these pages. And here's another sketchbook journal. I have a ton of these sketchbook journals if you haven't figured that out. But, I like them. They're not that expensive. The paper quality is great for what I do with it. If you use marker, it's going to bleed through. If you use too much watercolor, it's going to bleed through. But I use it sparingly, and I really enjoy the results I get with these sketchbooks. So if you haven't heard of them before, I'll put a link down below where maybe you can find one. I don't have any affiliation with the company, so don't worry about that. This is just my personal preference. You can see I do a lot of studies and a lot of sketches with these sketchbooks, and I love keeping these things around. Now, I haven't looked at this stuff in about a year, and that's crazy. But some of the stuff I don't remember doing, or it's just I don't want to remember doing it, but it's a great way to reflect back and say, oh yeah, I remember sitting in the car and drawing this telephone pole, or whatever. It's a great way to look back at your year and reflect on the styles that you were using back then, what kind of mediums I was using back then. Was I doing marker? Was I doing watercolor? And just to make myself laugh at some of the weird stuff that I was drawing about a year ago. Now, for the more serious stuff, some of this stuff was done for YouTube, some of it was done for commission or fine art, and like this cardinal here. This was a piece I did for a YouTube video, and like this piece here was for a video, but you can see it's unfinished. So what I do is I take it into Photoshop and scan it and clean it up, and then it's presentable as a finished illustration. And that is what an illustrator typically does these days, is does the illustration on paper and then scans it. And even digitally, if you create it digitally, you just clean it up in Photoshop or some other image editing program and make it look presentable enough for the web or for publishing if you were going to publish it in print. Same thing with this one here. Now, some of these things, I can't explain it. Just having fun, just working in different styles and just trying to be a little different with my subject matter and having fun. And that's what this is all about, is just having a good time, exploring and seeing what's what. Now, this drawing was a sketch, and you can see with the final illustration, it is actually a lot different than that sketch. So it was a great starting point to have the sketch to go into the final illustration. These characters here, I eventually developed into them. What you see there, which is the trolling Agneses, I call them, and they're a lot of fun to work with. And so there's just a lot of different artwork that I have in this portfolio. Some of this stuff I can probably keep and savor it, and put it away and keep it for years. Other stuff I can scan in, like I said, like this piece here was for a video, it was a brand loyalty video, which I clean up and polish in Photoshop to get it ready for final, as a final illustration. But some of the stuff, like this drawing here, I may not keep this. I'll keep it for a while, but really it was just a weird drawing that really didn't have any purpose. I was just having fun. Some stuff I have multiple versions of because they're tests and they're studies to see what style works, to see what colors work, to see how it's all going to pan out in the final artwork. So I'll keep all three of these drawings because I like to see the different variations of style and treatment. This was for that same project, so again, keeping it around and just comparing. This was one that I took a lot of heat from because of the subject matter. There was no ill intent with this drawing. It was just a doodle, just a drawing, but people took it a little serious and, threw some really nasty names at me in that video. So, it happens. You get bad comments all the time. I got a lot of comments about this because I messed up the wing on the bottom character there. So I went into Photoshop and I cleaned it up because I wanted it to look right. But it's amazing how people just jump right on that and they will say some pretty aggressive things when you put it out in a video. So a lot of this stuff, like this was a bad paper choice. This was just a drawing I did for no reason. I was just sitting bored one night. This was at a state hospital. I saw this little fire plug there, and my fine art side comes out every now and again, and I don't usually put the fine art stuff on YouTube. Occasionally I will, but this was a pump that I had in my backyard, which we had to get rid of, so I'm glad I painted it. This was my breakfast for the longest time. It was toast with jalapenos, and I still love this, but I don't have it that much anymore. It got a little bit too spicy for me. This was from meeting a friend. We met for a painting gathering. We met at a coffee shop and decided to paint our coffee cups. Again, a lot of studies, a lot of sketches. This was for a project where I was doing this neighborhood drawing, and this neighborhood, I just couldn't get it right. So I have all these drawings, and this is Arch's watercolor paper. So these are expensive tests, and I don't like to waste paper like that. So I'm holding on to these, and maybe I'll go back into them and flesh them out a little more, or I'll just keep them as references for now, which is what I'm doing. So you can see a lot of this stuff kind of goes to waste. Again, the fine art stuff, this was for a video. These flowers here were also for a video on watercolor pencils in a comparison. This was for a video here, this poinsettia, which was a lot of fun. And these fish were for our Prismacolor pencils, a scam, which, again, that was one that took a lot of heat on that one too. It's funny. This was the 7 Deadly Sins of Art, which was for a video, and I just have so much fun looking back at all the work that I did in the past year, and I hope you guys do that too. I hope you're keeping the drawings you did, whether in a sketchbook, digitally, or keeping them somewhere where you can access them, because it's just a lot of fun to sort of go back through your own history, through your own style, and see how you've changed and how you've progressed. I continue to do this every year. This was a drawing I did at the beginning of the year, and this was the final drawing I've done this year so far. So it's nice to see all these different styles and things that I've done, and I hope you enjoyed this flashback with me. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe below. If you like the music, head on over to Noise Trade and check that out. Thank you so much for stopping by. Have a great weekend, and God bless.